Somebody in your life is going to call you arrogant this year. Not because you got cruel, not because you got selfish, because you stopped doing something you used to do automatically. Laughing off disrespect, over-explaining yourself, staying available at every hour for people who never once asked if you were okay. And the moment you stop, the word that gets used almost every single time is arrogant. Here's a story that shows you exactly what happens next, before we go anywhere else. In 1913, Carl Jung stopped agreeing with Sigmund Freud. For years, he had performed the role of Freud's loyal successor, agreeing publicly with ideas he privately doubted, smiling through disagreements he never voiced. When he finally broke from Freud and started saying what he actually believed, the reaction from his former colleagues wasn't debate. It was character assassination. Arrogant, unstable, a man who thought too highly of himself. Jung himself said afterward that the years following that break were the most disorienting of his life, a period he described as an active confrontation with his own unconscious, where he genuinely wasn't sure if he was losing his mind or finally becoming real. That's not a story from 1913. That's a story happening in your group chat right now. Machiavelli would tell you that's not an accident. He'd tell you that word, arrogant, is a weapon deployed by people who just lost control of you. Carl Jung would tell you something even colder. That word is proof you're finally telling the truth for the first time in years. Two men, 400 years apart, who never met, who barely agreed on anything, and both of them, from completely different directions, arrived at the same answer for why the people around you always misname your healing as ego. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why "you've changed" is never actually a complaint about who you became. It's a complaint about who you stopped being useful to. Here's the contradiction sitting underneath this entire topic. Machiavelli spent his career studying how power gets taken away from people, and he noticed something specific. The accusation of arrogance is almost always aimed at someone who just became harder to predict. He warned rulers that the moment you stop performing the role people assigned you, they will not describe it accurately. They will moralize it. They'll call it pride, coldness, ego, anything except what it actually is, which is a loss of leverage over you. Jung studied the same phenomenon from inside the psyche instead of inside a court. He said people build something he called a persona, a mask constructed to stay loved, stay safe, stay accepted. And once you've worn that mask long enough, the people around you stop relating to you as a person with limits. They start relating to you as a function, the dependable one, the easy one, the one who never makes things complicated. So the day you finally set a limit, go quiet, or stop absorbing what used to be absorbed, it doesn't register to them as honesty. It registers as a malfunction of the function they were depending on. So which is it? Is arrogant a political accusation or a psychological misread? Stay with me, because the answer is going to be far more uncomfortable than either option alone. Let's start with power, because this is where the accusation is actually manufactured. Machiavelli watched rulers across Renaissance Italy lose their grip the moment they stopped being generous, agreeable, or endlessly accommodating to the people around them. And he noticed the public reaction was never proportional to what actually changed. A ruler could shift one policy, hold one boundary, refuse one request, and be branded arrogant, cold, not who they used to be, by the exact people who benefited most from the old arrangement. His explanation is blunt and still holds up today. People don't actually resent you for changing. They resent losing access to the version of you that cost them nothing. In The Prince, he argues that a ruler who tries to be endlessly generous eventually exhausts the resources that made the generosity possible, and is then hated for the very same restraint that once would have been called wisdom. Generosity without limits doesn't buy loyalty forever, it buys an expectation. And the moment the expectation isn't met, gratitude flips into resentment instantly. Watch how this plays out in ordinary life. The friend who always says yes finally says no once and gets called selfish, not because the request was reasonable, but because yes had quietly become owed. The employee who used to take every extra task starts protecting their time and gets called difficult, not because the work stopped getting done, but because their availability had become load-bearing for someone else's convenience. Machiavelli's insight is exact here. The word arrogant isn't a description of your character. It's the sound someone makes when a resource they were relying on suddenly announces it has limits. Here's the practical implication for your actual life. The accusation almost always arrives fastest from the person who benefited most from your old compliance. Not from strangers, not from people with nothing at stake. If you want to know exactly what role you are playing in someone's life, watch who calls you arrogant the moment you stop playing it. There's a second layer to Machiavelli's logic that most people miss entirely. He didn't just say the accusation was manufactured, he said it was strategic, sometimes even unconsciously so. If someone can successfully brand your new boundary as arrogance, they don't have to examine why the old arrangement worked so well for them. They shift the entire conversation from, "Why did I need so much from this person?" to, "Why did this person suddenly get so difficult?" It's a redirection tactic disguised as an emotional reaction, and it works because most people would rather feel betrayed than feel exposed. That's layer one. Arrogance, as an accusation, is rarely about you. It's a warning shot fired by someone who just lost a function they were depending on, and a redirection that protects them from ever asking why they needed that function so badly in the first place. Before we move to layer two, sit with this for a second. Who was the last person to call you different? And what, specifically, did they used to get from the old version of you for free? Type it in the comments. I read every one, and I want to see the patterns across this entire community. Now let's go underneath the accusation, into the actual psychology of the person receiving it, which is you. Jung's own life gives us the clearest example of this, the one we opened with. For years, he performed the role of Freud's loyal successor. When he finally broke from that role and started saying what he actually believed, the people around him didn't experience his honesty as growth. They experienced it as betrayal of the function he used to perform. This is the exact mechanism playing out in your life right now, at a much smaller scale, every time healing starts. For years you were the understanding one, and understanding, over time, stopped being a value and became an unpaid job. You smiled when resentment was building underneath your skin. You absorbed other people's emotional chaos and handed it back to them as calm, as patience, as maturity. And you called it being the bigger person. Underneath, it was never generosity. It was fear. Fear that if you stopped absorbing, you'd lose the one thing that made you feel safe to keep around. Here's the revelation pulse. When you finally stop, when you go quiet instead of laughing off disrespect, when you stop over-explaining yourself, when you become unreachable instead of endlessly available, from the outside, it looks exactly like arrogance, coldness, ego. But what's actually happening is that for the first time, you're not translating your real emotional state into something socially convenient. You're not performing calm you don't feel. And the people who built their comfort on your performance don't have language for what just happened. So they reach for the nearest insulting word that fits. You've become arrogant. The practical implication cuts deep. Everything you've been calling patience, kindness, being easygoing. Some of it was real, and some of it was a shadow side survival strategy, a way of staying loved by making yourself impossible to leave. The traits you're proudest of are worth a second look. You weren't always patient because you were mature. Sometimes you were patient because confrontation felt like it would end you. And once you start noticing this in yourself, you can't stop noticing it everywhere else. You start hearing repetition instead of explanation. You notice the friend who claims to be thrilled about your progress and consistently changes the subject the second it comes up. You notice the family member who says they just want you to be happy in the exact tone that only ever appears right before they ask you to shrink back down to a size that's comfortable for them. The conscious mind speaks in language. The unconscious speaks in patterns. And the pattern underneath most accusations of arrogance is painfully simple. I liked the version of you that needed nothing from me and gave me everything. This new version asks for something back, and I don't have a category for that except to call it selfish. Here's where these two truths collapse into one, and this is the line I want you to actually remember. What Machiavelli called the loss of a useful subject, Jung called the collapse of a persona. They were both describing the exact same event from two different vantage points. One from the outside, watching a mask come off a face that had worn it so long it forgot it was a mask at all. The word arrogant is simply what that collapse sounds like when the person hearing it has no framework for understanding what they're actually losing. So the deepest truth in this entire video is this: arrogance was never a real diagnosis. It was always a translation error. The sound made when someone's convenience meets someone else's honesty. And the person on the losing end of that exchange doesn't have the self-awareness to say, "I liked you more when you had no limits." Instead, they say, "You've changed." Instead, they say, "You think you're better than everyone now." What they mean, underneath all of it, is, "You used to be predictable, and predictability was the entire value I was extracting from you." And here's the part that should genuinely sit with you after this video ends. If someone has called you arrogant recently, cold, distant, different, you are not required to defend yourself against that word. Because defending yourself against it means re-entering the exact performance that made the accusation necessary in the first place. Machiavelli would tell you the accusation is simply the cost of no longer being a resource someone can rely on without asking. Jung would tell you the discomfort you feel hearing it is simply the cost of consciousness, that there is no honest version of yourself that doesn't require someone, somewhere, mourning the compliant version they preferred. There's a specific loneliness in this stage that almost nobody prepares you for. You start noticing which relationships were actually about you and which ones were about the function you used to perform. Some people were never drawn to your presence. They were drawn to your availability, your lack of limits, the safety of knowing you'd absorb whatever they didn't want to carry themselves. Once the function disappears, so does their warmth, and you're left holding a question that is genuinely hard to answer honestly. Did they ever know your actual face? Or only the one you handed them because it was easier for everyone? This is also where you'll notice something Machiavelli and Jung would both have predicted, even though neither of them would have used the same words for it. The people who genuinely knew you, not the function, not the mask, but you, don't call this arrogance at all. They notice the change. Sometimes they even miss the old ease of it, but they don't reach for a moral accusation. They ask what happened. They get curious instead of injured. That distinction alone will tell you, faster than anything else, which relationships in your life were built on your actual presence and which ones were quietly built on your absence from yourself. So here's where this actually leaves you, and it's not a lesson. It's a test you're going to keep facing for the rest of your life. The next time someone calls you arrogant for finally being honest, don't ask whether they're right. Ask what, specifically, they just lost access to. Machiavelli already told you the answer 400 years ago. They lost a subject who cost them nothing. Jung already told you the other half. You lost a mask that was never actually your face. There is no coming to consciousness without someone, somewhere, calling it arrogance. What almost nobody tells you is that they're not wrong that something changed. They're only wrong about what to call it. It was never arrogance. It was the first honest sentence your life has spoken in years. Tell me in the comments, what word did they use on you? Arrogant, cold, different, selfish? I want the exact word. And the next video goes into exactly what happens to the relationships that only survive on the version of you that just disappeared.